We're in kind of like the thick of it, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like the end of the main course-ish.
Yes.
Yep, starting off with the storms, storms, snakes, and now we're here in the
In the smoke.
in the smoke. Tell me about the smoke, bro.
Yeah. This chapter 8 was the hardest to write. And I don't know, it's hard meaning like I felt like it could have been its own book. There was just so much stuff that God was pouring into my heart. I was experiencing, I was learning, I was just, I guess, revelations that were coming just of what I was discovering about the smoke was just like mind blowing. And so in the book, in the chapter, it is really practical, kind of identify what it is, what category it is with battling adversity. Very important, but it's the mirror of your challenges. It's the one where you got to look at yourself versus outside trying to solve things. You're kind of looking in. And when you do that, man, it can get deep, just looking at things beyond the surface of things and really being honest with yourself. So just the revelation in the process of, seeking God and trying to understand what God was revealing. And it was just like, it was like endless, man. It was like so deep of like, it was beyond just business ownership challenge solving. It was to the level of recognizing the depth of our salvation. And is it really even there? I mean, it was just, it's a deep subject. So I'm excited to get behind the scenes of the stuff you won't even find in the book. But the book is very important because it is from a business owner speaking to you and how important it is to recognize when this is kind of derailing you, right? And then how to get back on course. There's a scripture that I'll start with, and then we'll reference this throughout this author's cut. It's in Matthew. Basically, it talks about if your eyes are healthy or if they're unhealthy, And so if the light in you is darkness, how deep is that darkness? And that really spoke to me. Basically, it says, if what you believe is right is actually wrong, how deep is that wrong? Because you don't even know it's wrong.
Oh, come on.
You see what I'm saying? And so that really spoke to me, because if you're walking down a path where you think you're going the right way, but it's a false sense of light, how deep is that darkness? It's like, that's scary, because it means you don't know. It's one thing to know and make a decision. I know this is not the right path, but I'm going. But to not know and think you're going on the right path,
it's
you know
dangerous.
what I'm saying? That's dangerous. So I wanted the Lord to really speak into that. Business, life, husband, personally, like, what is this? Let's unpack that, God. Like, what is that? And so, what I think of, and this is what I wrote in the book, just to give some, but driving down the road at night, right? You got your headlights, you can see, but what happens when there's a fog? You know what I mean? And I've been in those situations that you're trying to conquer the darkness with light. So boom, you can see. You turn on the light, you're good, right? But what if there's fog when you're driving at night?
Still hazy.
The light doesn't do anything. And so, it was just a visual that helped me understand, like, you don't really know where you're going if you have fog in front of your windshield, right? You got to kind of tap into another GPS or trying to figure out, like, where am I actually going? So, historically, there's a term called the smokescreen. Yeah, and I'll just kind of share into that. And so in Germany, it was the Battle of Normandy, against the British, where the smokescreen really took surface of like a military tactic. And they would actually, you see it in movies, like the army military dudes coming into a room that throw a little grenade that shoots smoke and then they come in, right? But see, what happened was these tanks, they wanted to hide themselves coming in for a military approach to attack the British. And so they put out these smoke bombs and you couldn't see the tanks. But from the vantage point of where the British were standing, they were like, oh, enemies coming. Like, oh, I know exactly where they're at, like, what's that smoke? And so it backfired on them, and the enemy, or I don't know who was the enemy or who was, the offense or defense, but British military was able to succeed that battle because the smoke screen gave off where the German tanks were. And so they defeated them. And so that made me think of, like, us personally, man, when we are going down a path that our that is blocked by the fog or the smoke, let's say, or the smoke screen. We feel like we're being, we're going down the right path, but actually we've opened ourselves in our vulnerability to the enemy. We don't even realize it. And that's what it's like. Oh, like you're walking in the smoke down the wrong path. You think it's the right path, but you're open game. Like the enemy's thinking, man, you're open game. I can just attack you like crazy. And you don't even know like where you're at. And so what I was recognizing is that, okay, what is this smoke? Like, how does it happen in real life? Like what can cause us to think we're in this light?
Yeah.
Right? And walking and thinking we're a correct path, but we're actually derailed in the wrong path, and we're just open game for the enemy to attack us. And we don't even know it, And so like, what is that? Now I'm like super interested, and that's what really opened up the can of worms, man. I'm like, okay, I don't want to be this guy. I don't want to be this guy. Cause there's a lot of pastors right now, Ray, like they're leading churches, they're leading with messages, everything looks good on the surface.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest with myself. Okay. If I'm pushing, I'm doing what I'm doing with this book, am I doing all this stuff, trying to push a message of the Lord? It could look like light, but it could be if that light in you is darkness, how deep is that darkness? It could be a false sense of, projection. And so I was like, what is that?
Yeah. You know what? I just got small kind chills because to speak about or to push something that you think is true and it could potentially be false, that's scary.
Super scary
because I don't want to be in that position. I don't think anyone wants to be in that position.
No, man. And it's so I prayed really hard and spent a lot of time in this chapter to unpack, to really know, okay, what is this? Like what's happening to people? What's happened to me? What is this thing? And I don't want to be in it.
Yeah.
I want a true sense. I want my eyes to be healthy, like the scripture Matthew says, not unhealthy. Yeah. Unhealthy eyes means what? You have a hard time seeing.
Yeah, that's me.
Right? And so unhealthy eyes. And so that's where the smoke comes in. There's another scripture in Revelation that why I even call it smoke now.
Yeah.
It was that, God there's a furnace that he sent and set fire, and it let loose the smoke out. And the smoke was so powerful that it got in front of the sun and you couldn't see, And so that imagery just kind of made me feel like, okay, there's a fire that started in the furnace, smoke rose and got in front of the sun and blocked all the light, and nobody could see. And so that made me think of that process of like, okay, I've been through 2 house fires. I understand that, there has to be something that starts a fire.
For sure.
And if there's a fire that starts, what always comes from the fire? Smoke. And smoke, if you have a house fire up in the sky, you see tons of smoke.
It's an indicator that
it's a flag saying there's a fire. And so if smoke, now I'm thinking, okay, if something's smoke screening me, where's that fire? What is the fire? Where did I start it? So now I'm like thinking practically, right? I'm thinking, okay, let's unpack, like where are these little fires coming from that could start these things? And so now it's like reverse engineering. I'm looking, from the smoke, trying to look back in deep and dig and try to find, okay, what is going on here in this smoke? So that's where this all started birthing from, right? It was just like, okay, I don't want to be this guy. There's an issue, right? I don't want to be this guy. And God's given me this vision, or I don't want to say vision, but imagery of smoke kind of representing the blocking of light and then like a fire. So I just started digging that way to kind of figure out like what this thing is.
And I think the starting point is within the chapter called Facing the Mirror. Right?
Yeah.
And I think as you're dissecting and trying to go deeper and deeper, it comes to this point where it's like, okay, I have to look at myself first. So, why is it, can you tell me why is it good to look in the mirror?
I mean, just logically, like before you go to work, you don't want to just go straight to work and then you got like food still chilling on your cheek, right?
Right.
Then, I remember I used to just wake up and, I'm a carpenter. So you just kind of wake up, get ready and go, right?
Yep.
Brush your teeth and go. And so I remember my wife's mom one day was like, you're supposed to brush your beard. You know, not. But it was like I didn't even look at it, and then when I looked in the mirror, man, it was nuts, man. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And you know, growing, I never knew I brushed the beard. I just thought it was just do its thing. But I'm like, yeah, you're right. I got to brush my beard. But if I would have looked in the mirror, I would have recognized that, right?
You know what? On a side note, I want to pause you there. In other words, in my mind, I'm thinking when you look in the mirror, you're also seeing what's true.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you're talking about this, because this is the beginning portion of in the book, it says how we proceed on things is facing the mirror. When you see your reflection, you see what's true of you. And so I can see why it was difficult to write this portion because
you got to face the truth, and that's the hard part, man. And like I threw out these 3 H's just to start, right? You have to be honest. Was number 1. Like when you look in the mirror, you could still lie to yourself. Man,
yes.
You know what I'm saying? I look good. You know what I'm saying? But in order to break through the smoke, and we're going to get to and unpack what it is, but you're right, man. Honesty is number 1. Honesty is number 1. You have to be honest. You're never going to figure it out. If you're alone, just be honest with yourself. You know what I'm saying? What is it going to hurt?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're in a room looking in the mirror, if you're sitting there by yourself and you're really trying to figure some stuff out about yourself, just be honest with yourself. Start there.
Yeah.
You know, honesty is the key to kind of break into this, right?
Yeah. And I think as the book continues on, you know, that first step is already difficult for people because you mentioned here that there's a lot of things that people want to be known for, or in here it says, it's keeping up your image.
Yeah.
You know, as a business owner, you want to look good. You know, you want to be perfect for other people because there's that insecurity of if I'm not, then that will break my business down or that will cause my, or whatnot. So even honesty is just a super tough thing for people, right?
It really is, and you know, if anything, man, that's the cloth that could start wiping off that windshield, though.
Come on.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you just have to be honest. And it's hard. You got to really look at your motives. That's like where I would start. It's like, what is my motive here? What's my why? Yeah. And then you'll really start to unpack this. And so going back to like leaders, pastors, and different people that are leading in this, let's call it that light that's actually darkness, right? And they don't even know it. It starts from a heart of, are we performing or are we serving?
Come on.
You know what I mean? And performance is looking for affirmation.
Yes.
Where servanthood is an assignment, right? And there's a total 2 different lanes, man. And what happens is, and I talk about 3 different E's that break down like what I've identified as these 3 pillars that are the fire starters of the smoke.
These are the practical tools as well.
Yeah. These are the fire starters. And so, and really, honestly, like we're being honest, I think one of them is the pillar of all pillars. I think the other 2 are like the outliers that catch to make sure I covered all areas of this arena of talking about like what causes the smoke. Yeah. I believe we'll talk about the 2 outliers, which are misaligned effort. That's an E, where you're putting all your energy and efforts into a performance or a lane that was never an assignment. Yeah. So that can really cause a residue because you're wasting energy, you're wasting resources when God's assignment for your life is over here. But it's more of like you're chasing a fantasy versus a fulfillment of what God has for you, right? And so, and how do you identify that? That's really hard, man. You got to go look in the mirror, and there's some digging we got to do, which we unpack in the book. But to find out, am I chasing a fantasy? I feel back in like 2008 to 2010, Richie, I felt led to rap hip hop and rap for Jesus in this Christian hip hop. But am I chasing an assignment or fantasy? You know, Christians all over it. Jesus is all over it. The heart was there, but it's good to check myself just in case. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't waste all your energy, time, and effort into this misaligned course that God has when it's over here. So misaligned effort is definitely an outlier pillar that I was able to discover, and God led me to. The other one is your ego, which is I think that one is the one that people can easily fall into and identify.
100%.
You know, like, okay, yeah, that's my ego. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I want to be the best. Yeah, I want things. You know,
I want the first idea.
Yeah,
or my idea.
And you're just driven by that ego, and that's a scary place to be too, because you're building a business off it. You're running your family off of it. You're running your relationship with your husband and wife, whatever side you could be running that off ego. You know, entitlement or any kind of spirit of just pride, right? Just kicking in, and so that one there is same thing, man. Both of those, we got to be honest. We have to dig for the honesty. Like, where's the motive in these, right? Like, where are these things? And so those are the outliers. But there's the one, man, that I felt like it just kept unpacking, and it got deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. This fire is so deep, and it resonates with everybody on the planet. Like, this is the pillar that can cause this, and there is an answer to it, and that's a very simple answer, but the fact to find it is key, and this is called emotional residue. Emotional residue is the smoke of all smokes.
Smoke of all smokes.
It is. So there's different colors. I learned this when I was in the military, Ray. So being in the Navy, we're treated as firefighters. We have to go through firefighter training. We have to literally get certified as firefighters.
Interesting.
In boot camp. And the reason is when you're on a ship and it gets hit by a missile or whatever, a fire kicks off, we got to be able to put that fire out. Yeah. And so we're all trained firefighters, you know, in the Navy. And so during that process, you learn physically how to fight a fire, but you also learn the book side of things, being educated on the fire, right? So you get into a class and learn about different smokes. And so I remember being in boot camp, and this was really intriguing to me, was like the color of smoke identifies the substrate, right? And I thought that was really cool. That's like cool. If it's an electrical fire, it's blue, you know, and if it's like just wood or, you know, just natural woods being burnt, it's like a white smoke. Yeah. But if there's a mixture of like chemicals and wood and everything, it's a black smoke. So I use these three colors of smoke for the three pillars, right? And the emotional residue is the black one, man. It's everything. It's the black one, man. The misaligned effort, that's the white smoke. The ego, that's the blue smoke. But the emotional residue, that is the black smoke, man. That's the one that just it's the killer.
Use an example of what that black smoke or what the emotional residue looks like in life, because it's not in the book.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. I'll give a personal example. Okay. Then I'll give a scriptural example, and then that should help identify both. Both of these aren't in the book. So okay, gotcha. This is fresh. Okay, so we'll talk about the scriptural side. So what happened when I was studying the emotional residue? I'm like, what is this, right? Like, what's the meat of this? What is, and so and even why I call it, it's like when I'm cooking, or let's just use my wife. I don't cook at home. I don't even know why I said that. My wife is cooking at home. She usually gives me a period of time to wash the dishes, and if I don't, I get it. You know what I mean? So during that period, when I succeed, like she'll have a cooking pan that's done. I'll clean the pan, all good, set it up on the counter so it can dry. And then she comes back and she was like, you didn't do a good job. I'm like, what you mean I did a good job? I did a really good job. Like, look, let's go look at it. She goes, touch it, feel it. And then what I notice is like, there's always this oil residue I can't get rid of, right? And so it's like in life, man, you know, looking back to the depths of Adam and Eve, the emotional residue kicked off with sin. I'm just going to say it right there. Sure. That's why this thing is so deep, because it is about our salvation. It is about our sinful nature. It is about all this is connected to even how you operate as a leader, how you operate as a parent, how you operate as a business owner. It doesn't matter. If you're leading something, you got to get rid of that residue on the pan. Yeah. And so we go look at Adam and Eve, man, from the beginning, you know, the first thing that happened, man, is when they disobeyed, they sinned. What did they do? They ran in shame and hid, right? God was walking around. He was like, where you at? Where you at, Adam? You know, like, and they were hiding, you know? And so shame is part of our sinful nature, and shame is a vulnerability. Think about it. It's like open doors. It's like, oh, I'm shamed, you know, like sure, it's very open. But when shame is open, that's an opportunity to get hurt. You know, you're an open door. It's like, as soon as shame happens, you can get hurt. And so what happened is during that shame, what happens to cover that hurt? Here's where smoke, this is where smoke happens. I'm going to cover that hurt. I'm so open and ashamed right now. I'm ashamed. I'm shamed, right? I'm naked and ashamed. I need to cover that. What do? We accuse. What did you do? Oh, I didn't do nothing. That was her. That was the very first accusation. Accusing somebody is shooting an arrow. And then once you shoot that arrow of accusation, it's called, let's use a different name. It's when shame goes to blame. So you blame somebody. Boom, blame. And what happens is you just created your first flashpoint residue. And what happens right there, that's when you blame somebody or accuse somebody, that's the root of the enemy, man. And what happens is somebody can get offended. Somebody can get hurt. Somebody can catch an offense. And as soon as you do that, you're starting to birth what's called what? Unforgiveness. Unforgiveness is the underline of emotional residue. Unforgiveness is the weed in the grass. Unforgiveness is the smoke that covers us. And no matter what you think you're doing as a leader or a pastor, if you're riding around with some unforgiveness, it doesn't matter like what light you think you're running. That lightness is actually darkness. So the cure to clear the fog is you have to walk in forgiveness when it comes to emotional residue. And that was scary. Like really looking. So as a leader, man, when I come into my personal life now, man, I'm looking at like, okay, like, wow, do I have resentment? Do I have, even with my wife, with an employee, with like, am I carrying something? Because if I'm carrying that, I could be operating totally in a different lane.
Yeah.
And don't even know it. So if I'm operating in unforgiveness, all things new is a lie. And I didn't even, so that's very important for me now to really be honest with me. And this is deep.
That's good.
For a business owner, it's like, man, unforgiveness matter? Heck yeah, it matters.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, it matters. It matters so much because you'll go be down the lane and don't even, like, God doesn't honor unforgiveness. He forgives it, you know? And so I was like, okay, now this is where I was like having fun. I don't know, fun's the right word, but like, okay, I want to unpack this now. Like, okay, so let me look at people that failed in the Bible, like leaders, right? So I'll go and I'm researching David. I'm like, okay, where's these flashpoints? Like in people. And I go look up like Peter when he failed with Jesus. And so I'm like trying to like look between the lines now. It's like, is there flashpoints happening in the Bible? And like, and we just missed them, like to understand like where this bitterness and unforgiveness roots from before a mistake. And I started like, God started showing me. And so like looking at David, for example, when he fell, with Bathsheba. So where we start the story, obviously, is in Samuel, where, when kings go to war, he stayed behind. They call it idleness, right? And so I even went deeper. I went the story before.
Okay.
In the story before, there was a king, Hanun, that his father, king, died. So David, as respect, sent some soldiers over to his land to show respect to the father. Hanun basically cut the pants off the buttocks, shaved the beard half, and sent them back. Total embarrassment. And what do you think David did? King David stayed back, which he usually goes out to war because he was probably shamed, and he sent all his soldiers out to kill him. You don't shame me like that. I'm King David.
Wild. Yeah.
And that was the story that happened right before Bathsheba. So he had some reconciliation, but he carried an emotional residue. You see where I'm going with this?
Oh, yeah.
He had an emotional residue now, and now he's idle. Kings are going to war. And that's where that statement came from. It was a season when kings go to war, but David was chilling. So idleness kicked in because of emotional residue, and then he fell into the rest of the story of Bathsheba. Let's go look at Peter. Peter was in the Last Supper, and you remember when Jesus was going around saying, hey, you're going to deny me 3 times?
Yeah.
There was one of the disciples in there that questioned him. Like actually questioned, like, oh, who's going to be the one?
Yeah.
You remember like somebody like, who's going to be the one?
Yeah.
And then it ended up being Peter. Later, when Jesus resurrected and came and visited them on the shore, and then he talked to Peter and actually reinstated him with the 3, Peter had the nerve to ask him, well, what about this guy?
Wow. Yeah.
Because he was still carrying an emotional residue.
Yeah.
All the way still to the point of being reinstated, which is crazy. Like, like just understanding like us as people, it's normal. We since Adam and Eve, it's in us, man. We're vulnerable. We can get hurt. You know, and when the arrows are shot at us, yes, we're going to get hurt. But understanding that Jesus came here to die on the cross and he conquered death in order to save us. Like, what is he saving us from? He's saving us from the sin and that unforgiveness, man. And so just understanding that at that deep level was very vital to understand when we're rising up as leaders, business owners, pastors, parents. The two that I just said, man, are we performing or are we serving? And able to identify that, you got to clear the smoke. You got to clear the residue, the emotional residue. You got to clear, you know, are you misaligning your efforts? You got to like look at these 3 pillars and make sure like we're leading with a clear glass, you know, so we can see where we're going, man, and know that it's in God's lane. Know that we're following the assignment and not affirmation. There's the quote from Lecrae that he says, if we live for people's acceptance, we'll die by their rejection. You know, and so, you know, it's we're set up for failure when we're throwing expectations out there. You know, and looking for affirmations and certain things.
With these 3 indicators, right, those pillars, you use the tools of, you know, not figuring out, but identifying these things, which is the 3 H's, right? Can you tell us about that and how to identify?
So just piggybacking off, you know, being trained as a firefighter through the Navy. When I was in 8th grade going to high school, we went on our very first vacation to as a family, very first one, to go visit my dad's side of the family in Utah. And right when we arrived, it was a road trip. I believe it was about a day and a half to, I can't remember the time frame of the drive for my family. My dad led the family trip. When we arrived, literally pulling into the driveway of my uncle's house, my dad's brother, we got a phone call from my grandma, my mom's mom, that our house burnt down, second house fire. And I remember seeing my mom and dad just cry and hug, and I was old enough, right, to really understand. You know, I lost all my Ken Griffey Jr. rookie cards, and like, you know, all the clothes that I had and what I have now is all I got. And they made a decision, let's just finish the vacation, go back and face the music. And
tough.
So very tough, but as kids, smart move. We just enjoyed the vacation, but kind of knew this heaviness of like, what are we going back to? And so when we drove back to Peoria, Illinois, and we pulled up to the house, I remember just seeing just to understand the context of the fire, 2 neighborhood kids, good kids. They just were they had a habit of playing on our front porch with my youngest brother Sean, and that was his friends. And they were there. We happened to have a gas tank for our lawnmower and a mattress we were getting ready to throw away, and they were playing with probably some G.I. Joe figures and lit them on fire. They might have had a little lighter or something, but it caught the mattress on fire. They ran. Thankfully, nobody got hurt. But once they hit the gas can, it blew a hole straight through the house. And it's like 2-story house. You could see from the porch straight through in sunlight. And then it was just melting everything. But the smoke damage, just everything was done. Complete damage. It was everything was black. I remember walking in with the fire chief, with my mom, my dad, fire chief, and I forget who else was there. But we walked through as a group to be safe, but to just kind of recognize the damage and what we went through. But while he was walking, and I heard the other fire people talking, they were looking for where it started. Where the fire starts. So we didn't know at the time. They're still kind of researching. So what they were looking for, and what I learned in the Navy as a firefighter, you look for these flash points. Let's just take a match, and it has that little tip in the wood, and you look for a substrate and you just rub it across. As soon as you see that thing ignite, that's called a flash point. And so that flash point became a tool for me to, you know, use to try to find and identify where these things grow from, where the fire grows from. Because if you can identify where the fire starts, it will eliminate the idea of there's ever going to be smoke. You know, and so, you know, we were walking through, everything was black. Just to kind of close a story on walking through the house, there was a picture on the wall. We seen a The piano in the living room was melted. The TV was halfway melted down, all black. I remember walking through and all the little memories I have of my brothers playing and eating lunch, macaroni and cheese, and just the table was black. It was real funky, like what that does to you, right? And everything's black. And then the fire chief is like, man, you guys aren't going to believe this. And I'm like, oh man, what? So you pull the whole family over. There was one picture on the wall that was untouched. Like no smoke, and it had like a smoke ring around it, real funky, but it was like it didn't touch it. Like there was like a handprint, not literally a handprint, not that specific, but like something blocked it. And it was a picture of a pelican with it's a well-known picture if you look it up on like Google, but there's a pelican eating a frog's head, but the frog, his head inside the pelican's mouth, his hands was choking the pelican. And on the bottom it says, never give up. And I remember seeing my mom tear up. I seen, the even fire chief saying, man, I never seen nothing like that, and just being encouraged knowing that even in the smoke, even in the fire, God's right there, man. God's right there. And that's what I would encourage anybody today, is watching this. Like, you do have to start with honesty. Honesty is super important. But number 2H is humility. Humility kills pride.
Come on.
Humility kills ego. Humility will listen to misaligned effort. And humility will put light on where you need to forgive. Humility is the secret sauce. Honesty is basically uncovers the food, but the secret sauce, man, is humility. Humility is the key. And so now I'm looking on my life and I'm looking at what are the flashpoints on my derails. You know what I mean? Or am I even derailing? Maybe I am on the right course. So I got to really search these things. And I believe me personally, where I discovered one was not letting go of the helm. Like, you get to a point where you're not a Michael Jordan or Steph Curry, but you get to a point where you feel like you have full control of the game. You know what I mean? You've learned enough, and you're trusting your entrepreneurial skills. You're trusting how I'm doing things. And there's a point where you take your belief system of God that he's going to come through for you based on your efforts. And I've been there. I've been there where I wouldn't let go of the helm. And God was saying, let go. And I couldn't do it. It's like, no, I know he's got me. And then I turned into a Jonah. Jonah is, it went through a path of disobedience. And it wasn't like a disobedience like going into sin. It was a disobedience of not letting go of the helm, letting go of control. I'm going to go my way. Not like, I'm still thinking in my head, I'm going God, like I'm still serving God by going that way. And why I say that is Jonah truly believed Nineveh was sinful.
Yes.
So he believed they deserved wrath and not grace. And so he went this way and he believed he was doing good.
Yeah.
And then he realized, God was still chasing him. And so in my life, in my business, I recognize, as a human, I had to be honest about myself. Like, am I really allowing God to have the helm and I'm serving, and I start paying attention. Am I performing or am I serving? Where's the heart? Not the visual, but where's the heart? Getting up on stage and I used to rap. I used to get super like anxiety and nervous. And this, why is because I was performing. I wasn't thinking in my head.
That's good.
I'm going up here to serve people. Who cares if I mess up? You know what I mean? But in my head, I didn't want to mess up. So that's a performance tier, right? That's like, and I used to get super anxiety and nervous because I didn't want to mess up. I mean, it was as simple as that. That's simple. Like if I told you that on the surface, like, oh, don't worry, man, you're going to be cool. You know what I mean? But really, I was in a performance category versus a servanthood.
Come on. That's gold, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now I have to literally tell myself, how can I serve today? I'm getting on here on the mic. How can I serve today? How can I serve you, Ray? How can I serve the client? How can I serve my wife? Because performance level, man, that's all affirmation, man. That's what's coming out of that. It's like, are they going to say, hey, you did a good job. Hey, you didn't mess up. Hey, and so I had to like really let go of the helm of performance and who cares, where it goes if you're serving. As long as you got the heart of serving, you're a full vessel and open for God to move and operate, right? Yeah. And so the third H, man, is not really an action item, but it kind of is. So once you go through honesty and you're just being honest, letting that door open to really dig in deep and be vulnerable, even with yourself, and look in the mirror. Do I really got to brush my beard? Like really looking at yourself, and then you're humble enough to say, yes, I do need to brush my beard, just have that humility to say, I am here. Right. And now God can move in, and now you can heal from these things, right? And healing, and why I put it as the third like prong in the 3 H's is because you can't just like discover, oh, I let go of the helm, now I'm good. There has to, you know what I mean? Like there has to be a season of allowing God to regroup you, reconstruct you, and get you back on course. It's not like if you're going off course, like Jonah. I mean, he was going to Tarshish, which was 2,500 miles away from where he was, and where God was sending him was only 500 miles. He went that far left, man. And so when he got into the big fish, God, got him in there and then spit him out. It was a journey of healing before he got to Nineveh. That was a far distance. It wasn't like the fish swam all the way to Nineveh. Sure. He didn't just spit him out. Maybe he did. I got to go check. But I believe there's a journey of walking and healing and understanding the mission and the assignment, not the performance or not the reason you think you're going. And so going back to, is the light in you? If the light in you is darkness, how deep is that darkness? I think it's very important, man, to check yourself. Yeah. Very important to check yourself. And I think, when I was in the starting days of ATN, All Things New, our construction company, what I used to do was I would go to Yelp, right? And I would not study the competition based on their 5-star reviews. I would go read all the 1-star reviews. I'd read them all. And so my goal is, and what I would learn from those was, I'd want to set myself up knowing what not to do. Right. And so a lot of entrepreneur owners, a lot of coaches in this world, they want to give you the 5 steps of getting rich and getting out there and get going. But I'm not like, my approach is, I want to show you what not to do, or how to protect you from the fall, or how to battle adversity. And so I thought it's very important to throw, these 3 pillars and these 3, categories, and the smoke being very important to recognize, like, hey, if I'm going to go down this lane and strive for the assignment God gave me, the builder of all things, be sure to check these 1-star reviews, and know what not to do. And so that's what these are, man.
Seems like this chapter, like you said, could probably be another book. The emotional residue for sure, man. And just knowing that, like, as a contractor, that's what unforgiveness is. It's a contract with somebody. It's like you got accused, or you got blamed, or you got your character attacked, or you got poked, and then you got hurt. Yeah, that's what it is. At the end of the day, you got hurt, and you grow this defense, and you start carrying this what we call unforgiveness. Sure. And what you do when that happens is you sign a contract with that person. And I know this as a contractor. I've signed many contracts over the years, and we could finish the project and all these things. They're still on my mind. Their house, is it going to leak? Is anything going to happen? Is it going to be okay while I'm sleeping at night? Because I signed a contract with them. And so, my encouragement to anybody is that to find the flashpoint of why you may be carrying this emotional residue or an unforgiveness. And we have to solve that. You have to solve that, because if you don't solve it, you have to almost terminate the contract. If you don't terminate the contract, it will carry with you. So it is for them. You do want to release them, but it's released for you too. And so what was really cool of what I discovered, man, was like, Jesus came to fulfill the law. Can we agree? Yeah. And what did he say? Love God with all your heart. And then love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's what got me, man. It was like the biggest residue of all time, man, is like, number 1 is forgiving your neighbor. Love them. Like, you know what I mean? Love them like you love yourself. But like you love yourself. Also, sometimes that emotional residue, the deepest ones, are when we have to forgive ourselves. That's one of the deepest ones. You sit there and forgive everybody, but if you're walking in unforgiveness with yourself, tough. Yeah.
That's the deepest one, man. So yes, this could be a whole nother book,
Yeah.
you know, in and of itself, but it was very important, man, for me to address emotional residue of all different kinds. Unforgiveness being the one that seemed to resonate like the most with most people in finding a place to, you know, forgive, you know, release so you can move on in clarity.
This chapter might be the one that has the most goods that weren't in the book. I think so. Would you agree?
Yeah. There's just so much there, man. Like, yeah.
But that's super good stuff with the smoke chapter 8 of Smokescreen. If you guys actually, before we close it off, do you have anything else to mention or?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think, you know, a lot of times it's easy to say you got to forgive somebody, right? And there's a story that God shed light on me that helped me understanding how to forgive somebody.
Yeah.
And I want to share that just to make sure it's like there in case somebody wants to, how do you position yourselves properly to like really forgive somebody, right?
Yeah, an application.
It's just understanding, you know, a heart posture. And so there's a story where a Pharisee in the old times invited Jesus in to have sit and dine with them. And in those times, man, like in respect, in their culture, used to sit, dine, sit back, kick your feet up on the table, relax, you get served, and it's a great time. But in the midst of all that, a local let's call her a prostitute, actually came in close to the house, came in, saw Jesus, got excited, had perfume, went to Jesus' turn, put his feet on the ground. She went down, she anointed his feet, wiped it with her hair, crying, tears falling down, and just recognized that she's a sinner and just like knew that he was who he was, the Son of God who came to forgive, and he was the anointed one. So she was there at his feet. Now the Pharisee, sitting on probably the other side of Jesus, just, you know, create imagery, he starts whispering in the story, like to the buddies or his other Pharisee buddies, like, hey, like, does he know who she is? Like, we all know who she is. That's that local prostitute. This is our town. Like, and look at him. Like, he's took his feet off the table, letting her touch him. Like, what's going on? And so Jesus kind of turns and gives him a little story. He said, let me ask you this, man. Like, if you got two people, you know, one is in a debt of, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the numbers, but one is in a debt of like $50 and the other one's in a debt of $500. Like, and here I am, I'm the judge of both of these debts and I forgive both of them. Who's going to recognize the debt more? He's like, obviously the one with 500, you know, like obviously, right?
Yeah.
And so basically what Jesus was illustrating to me was that, number one, and let me know if you agree with this, the Pharisee and the prostitute in God's eyes, is there a difference in debt? There's not. We're both sinners to a full debt, right?
Yeah.
And so what Jesus was painting the picture was not that her debt was greater than his. He was painting the picture that she recognizes how great her debt is. You don't. That's what he's saying. And so there was a posture difference. One was sitting up on the table with his feet kicked up. I think Jesus and God illustrated that beautifully, allowed it to happen because he's propped up with his feet kicked up on the table while she's on the ground crying with her tears and anointing God's feet and understanding the depth of her sin. So now looking at like unforgiveness with somebody, right? If I'm sitting in here and I have this bitterness or offense or unforgiveness with you, basically I'm lowering my debt and raising yours. That's what's happening.
Right.
You see, that's my posture. I'm saying your debt is more than me.
That's crazy.
And so to really forgive somebody is to recognize, like the prostitute on the ground, that our debts are the same.
Yeah. That's wild, bro. That's so good.
And so for me, it reminds me of my posture. I ain't no better than this person. Thank God for his grace. Thank God for his mercy on both of us. Yeah. Right? Understanding. Yeah. And I believe God allowed this whole, you know, journey of just being in a sinful body to understand that posture. You know, and setting us up for success, actually. You know, to understand, like, you know, we're the beauty of gratitude, right? And behind it. So I think that was worth sharing.